What was the story behind you walking up on West that one time the other day? I didn't notice you were walking behind me with the
Oh,
championship until I watched the video back because I was looking in a magazine when you did that.
I came down there to get some screeners. Like it was just a complete coincidence. Like I just came down there to get some screeners from him that Arrow had sent to like him, the basket case one, and a couple other ones. And like I kept knocking on the fucking door, and I'm like, why is he not like opening the door? And finally, like his wife let me in, and I just walked in there, and you guys happen to be doing
Oh,
that video. So I was just like in the background looking at his shit while y'all were doing the videos, like his Blu-rays and stuff. And so there was a championship
I
belt.
didn't see that until I watched the video.
I just like picked it up and walked through. I don't know.
Yeah, that shit
Just
was
something to
fun.
do.
Bill, as you can see, I already start recording because I try to be respectful to the people that give me their time.
Oh yeah.
Before tonight's topic, Bill, I wanted to talk to you about was conventions because I think you'll probably see that they're exploding. More and more people are going. I'll get a few messages every now and again. Hey, it's my first time. What should I bring? And I think honestly, they need a real sincere kick in the ass on reality about these things. And you know what I'm saying? And I think
Yeah.
this is a perfect show for you because you've been going to conventions for years and you actually remember what conventions were like. And I think it'd be really cool to break that down and get that story on how much they've changed, good experiences you've had, maybe some bad experiences with meeting people. But before we do that, I don't feel like I've been able to ask you a lot of questions. I know this is right off the cuff, so you may not be able to have an answer right away. But if you could, what is a movie that you really love that I wouldn't think you would, or maybe people be surprised? Like you really like that movie, Uncle Bill?
Valley Girl. That's one of my top favorite movies. I love that
Mm,
fucking movie. I think Nicolas Cage is amazing in that movie. I think that the whole punk backdrop of that movie is great. I love Deborah Foreman. I pretty much love everything that Deborah Foreman's in. My Chauffeur, April Fool's Day, Valley Girl. Like, I don't know what I think she should have been like a way bigger star than she was. But I don't think I've ever brought that movie up. But I
well, there
do
we
love
go.
that movie.
I
Yeah.
see. I like that kind of stuff. And what is a movie that people probably think you would like, but you just think sucks, overrated, that sort of thing?
Oh man. Um,
I'm assuming not Evil Dead, Doctor Giggles, or Dawn of the Dead, considering they're right behind you.
yeah, not any of those. It's a movie that people would think that I would look. Well, I hate to say it, but like a lot, because I know you're huge fans of these movies, but a
Sure,
lot
good.
of the Nightmare on Elm Street sequels, I think people assume that I love those, and a lot of them I don't. I
I feel
think
like
that that's my weakest franchise of shit that of the franchises that I like. No, that's not true because probably it's probably Hellraiser, but yeah.
I, I mean, give me a break.
Let's say of the main franchises, like Nightmare on Elm Street, Halloween, Friday the 13th. That's probably
Are you a kind of guy that enjoys like a paranormal activity
no,
at
not
all?
really. I mean, when I first saw that movie, it freaked me the hell out. Just the idea. The only thing that freaked me out about it was the idea of somebody standing over you while you're asleep. Something about that just fucking creeped me out. I didn't really care about the demon aspect of it, but just that part of it freaked me out. As far as like any of the sequels to that movie or anything like that, like I can't.
Well, I
I
mean, a
can't.
cat's out of the bag by that point, you know.
I hate ghost movies. That's probably my least favorite genre because number one, I don't believe in ghosts, and number two, like most of those movies are not scary at all. Like there's good ones, like The Changeling's great, but the especially the ones that were like Asian, that were like the
Dark
million of
water,
them that
stuff like
came
that.
out, like yeah, like I can't stand those movies, man.
Yeah.
Jump scares for days, those kind of movies.
Is there any physical media releases this year you really enjoyed so far?
Yeah, a ton of them. Now let me sit here and try to figure out what the hell they are all of a sudden. Well, what have I been watching lately? Fighting Back, The Arrow. I don't know when that one came out, but I watched that one recently and really
Yeah.
liked it. Um, a lot of this stuff is like older stuff that I just bought, honestly.
What's that yellow thing? It says
That's
Giallo
the
on it.
Giallo Essential set from Arrow. Yeah, I bought all those recently too.
Oh, cool.
A lot of stuff is sales stuff that I bought. But yeah, I mean, There's a lot. Oh yeah. I'll tell you one, man. As I was picking that up, that I just watched a couple days ago, that I was like, I don't remember this movie looking like this at all.
What
The Boogans. I
did?
was that movie looks like it was made in like the 1950s or something. I was like, what the fuck is going on? But it had a charm. It had a great charm to it, like a Ghoulies kind of charm to it or something. But it looked like it was made. It was supposed to be set in the 50s. It was just very odd.
What the hell? What the hell is the Boogans? Like I call it the Boogan
The
monster.
Boogans,
It's like
yeah,
this fat, weird bug.
creature thing. Yeah, this fucking giant. What do they call those larva fly looking things? Yeah, that's kind of what it is.
Yeah. I remember that scene in that movie where it's coming out of like the vent on the floor and like it's trying to drag that woman down when she's got the towel on. That's a great scene. I like the Boogans. People
I
gave me a
did.
little bit of shit for my 4K review. They're just like, "Oh, this movie sucks." I'm like, It's not that bad. Jesus
No,
Christ."
I mean, I liked it quite a bit, to be honest. Like,
You know,
if you're into that kind of movie, like monster kind of
creature feature
stuff,
stuff. Yeah.
yeah, creature features, yeah. But here lately, to be honest, like, I've gone down this weird rabbit hole of Cat 3 movies and giallo movies, and I think that it's taken me to some dark waters. Like like, you can only, like, go down that rabbit hole for so long before you run into shit like Scissor Penis and stuff like, and where you're just kinda like, "Yeah, it's jumped the shark, like, quite a while back now." But there's some good there's some good ones in both of those, but then you get, like, way too far into it, and there's some really, like, ridiculous stuff.
Yes, that's always been my problem with the Italian stuff. I hesitate to say giallo because in the past I've been uh criticized isn't the right word, but I've had people that are more experienced me that says, "Well, that's not technically a giallo." I was like, "I thought it's a mass killer, somebody you don't know who it is." Like, yes, but anyway, like there's still a lot of stuff that I've seen. A bad Italian movie, Uncle Bill, the problem with it is when they're bad, they are really bad, and they will make
Yeah.
me not wanna watch Italian films for a while. But when they're
Well,
great, they're great.
yeah, when they're bad, they're, like, as
Punishment
bad
bad.
as yeah, they're as bad as an American movie, except you have to read everything too. So it's like
It's like a kick in the
doubly
balls
bad, yeah.
after it's a double kick in the balls, a swift kick in the nuts.
And there's a lot of really bad giallos. I don't know if people talk about that much, but, like, for every, like, 5 giallos, there's 1 good one, and there's
That's a
4 that
video you need
suck.
to do. That's a live stream you need to do. Avoid these giallos at all costs. That's a
I mean,
great video.
I have each one of those sets, and I've got, like, the Vinegar Syndrome, Forgotten Giallo sets or Forgotten Gialli sets, sorry. But, uh, there's a bunch of bad ones, like,
So
I'm here to tell
should have
you.
been forgotten giallo set.
Yes, yes, that should be a new set from Vinegar Syndrome, yeah. Please be forgotten, Gialli.
Oh, man.
Uh, no, man, like, I know people, like, they work themselves up into a shoot, so to speak, about these certain movies and things like that, but, like,
Right.
people forget that they made a lot of bad ones. Just like anything else, they made a lot of bad slasher films, and I
Yeah.
love slasher films, but there's a ton of boring, one-dimensional shit slasher films from the '80s, a
Yeah.
ton of them. Like, I could name 5 right now, like, off the top of my head, and all of them are ones that Dana loves. That's how I know what they are.
Shut up! So, Bill, Deadpit's been rocking and rolling. When did you guys come back? I guess on a full-time basis? Is
God, it
that
was COVID. It was when COVID, so I would think 2020,
so
I think?
so how's everything been going still? Everything's still full speed ahead? No
Yeah, I
signs of
mean,
stopping?
everything's going great right now. Like, I think I got 1 more year left in me. That's what I was thinking. Like, I wanna make it to the 20th anniversary and then just be like, fuck. I just wanna do a video where I tell everybody that I don't like to fuck off and then just fucking disappear. That's it. That's the way I wanna go out. So that's how I'm planning on doing it. So I got 1 good year left in me. We'll get to the 20th
Alright.
is next year.
Then let me get the exit interview. So a few weeks before you, do dip out, I'll have to interview
Yeah.
you again.
Yes. Yeah.
So,
It'll be an insane interview.
listen, Bill, I think it would be cool to start with about conventions with I'd love to actually do this. I'd love to recap your last convention and then we're gonna circle way back through time to see just how much it turns into shit. So
Wow. You, oh,
the last one was Horror Hound, correct?
yeah.
The Eli Roth
Uh,
meetup and stuff
it
like that.
was it was Whorehound in Cincinnati with Eli Roth as the main guest, and it was um
How long
to
had it been
talk.
since you've been to a convention since that one?
God, man. Well, that's the thing. I go to Scarefest every year, so it hadn't been that long. So the
Except the
last
one year
one,
I went. I was so bummed
well,
out
yeah,
you guys bailed
yeah,
on me.
that's true. Like I went to Scarefest when they had the Friday the 13th reunions and all that. They had all the final girls there.
Mhm.
That would have been the last show that I went to before that. And I actually did meet quite a few of them, and they were all $40 a piece, which we'll get into that like,
Yeah.
later. Um, but you want to talk about like a complete 180, and I'll go into all the reasons like why I think that that's kind of happened. But like this last convention, we had one purpose at this show, really. We both did, and that was to have a good time, meet people at that were fans of the show. But the main purpose was just to get that picture with Eli Roth so he could sell it. I'm just gonna be honest with you.
Yeah.
Like, we wanted to get that picture and we wanted to be able to like turn it into kind of like, um, make our money back because it was 100 and I can't even remember what he said with taxes. It was insane amount of money. Like,
But just to fill in people real quick that may not be as familiar with Deadpit that are watching this, give them the backstory on the Eli Roth situation.
so around 2006 or 7, right when we first started doing the show,
The hostile era.
Yeah, Eli Roth released like kind of back to back almost like Cabin Fever and then later on Hostel. And Hostel changed the whole landscape, to be honest, because with you had Saw, you had Hostel, then you had all these fucking rip off movies that were doing like Captivity and all these movies that were doing Turistas that were doing the exact same thing.
Right.
And he just started this trend of torture porn movies. That's what they called them at that time.
Right.
And we hated those movies. And I still hate those damn movies, to be honest. Like, uh, I still don't really have any kind of like love for those movies, but he started that, and we were kind of on a mission to use him as kind of like I don't know what you would call it, like the
Whipping boy.
whipping or the figurehead for everything we hated,
Yeah.
basically about horror films at that time. He was like uh, yeah, the guy,
Trendsetter, the guy that
yeah, that just we kind of poured all of our hate into him. And we had this long history of trying to get him on the show. And at one point in time, we had his phone number. We called him. We left messages. Like we did videos, like mocking like his films. Like there's one like it's called The Road to Hostel 2, which is still on YouTube. I'm pretty sure. That's basically just me being tortured. Into going in to see Hostel 2. Like Wes has to torture me to get me to go watch it. And like he saw that and actually liked it. Like, this was back in, I don't know if it was MySpace or Facebook, one of those two that he actually liked it on. So
yeah.
he was aware of us around that time. He just never would like have anything to do with us or really acknowledge like anything that we were saying, which I was, it's a pretty smart move, really. But so fast forward, all that, and that went on for years. Fast forward all that until now, we're like, he never did conventions, never did any conventions around us anywhere. And we're like, we got to meet this guy and we got to go up to him and just see if he remembers like anything about that or like see if we can get him to do an interview. And then we'll get that picture and we'll try to sell that to make our money back for getting the picture.
Right.
And that was our main kind of priority in going to that show.
Right.
Which did happen. He did remember us. He ushered us out of there as quickly as he fucking possibly could. But I think that was kind of like, that was everybody too. And he gave us the whole like, oh yeah, have your people call my people. We'll set something up. I swear to God, it was something almost identical to that, where he was like, yeah, we'll set something up talking about me, which will never happen. But we accomplished that. And then we just kind of walked around the show. And to say that conventions have changed since I first started going to conventions is the understatement of the decade, man. Like, I've said this many times, and I stick by this statement. There's a lot of people that don't agree with this, and most of them are people that still actively go to conventions and spend a lot of money. But conventions have turned into carnivals, That's what they are now. You're a mark. Like marks at carnivals were people that they would take out their wallet and you would see the carnival guys would see how much money they had. And if they had a lot of money, they would put a mark on their back. That way everybody that saw them walking around knew they were a mark. That's basically what conventions are. They know everybody's loaded down with money now, and they're trying to figure out every way possible as you walk around the show now to get your fucking money.
Mhm.
If it's photo ops, it's that. If it's dress up photo ops, it's that. If it's autographs, it's that. If it's like taking pictures at the table now, they got 2-for-1 deals on like, you can get a table selfie and an autograph now. If it's, you buy their 8x10s and it's like $30. Like they've got so many different ways to rip you off
Mhm.
and get your money that it's a carnival. And like I was saying, man, there's certain games at these conventions, like just at a carnival, you can't win. Like you can't break even. You'll never win the game where you have to throw the fucking ball at the milk jugs. The milk
Yeah.
jugs are weighted down. You're never going to win the photo op game. It doesn't make any sense. Those pictures look ridiculous every time, and they're like $180 now. You're never going to win like going up and talking to somebody for 30 seconds. Like what? You're not going to have a meaningful interaction with anybody in the amount of time that you can spend with these people.
Mhm.
It's not going to happen. So I don't know why people want to do it. That confuses me now because that's not like how the way that it used to be.
And for the people that they're hearing this that may think that sounds a little bit harsh, um, for me, the reason I agree with you is because I feel like I was able to go to a convention. I would say literally the heartbeat before it really got over the top. For instance, my first convention, it would have been 2013, but something happened and I got cold feet. I didn't go because I hadn't gone before, and I was like, oh my god. The next year, my wife was like, let's just go to this Texas Frightmare thing. So in 2014, I went to my first convention, which is now 10 years ago. And I remember walking right up to Doug Bradley, $20 for the
Mm-hmm.
autograph, the picture. A. Michael Baldwin, the kid from Phantasm,
Yeah.
$20. Walked right up to him, picture. Angus Scrim was there, and he had a very long line, but he was $40. And I mean, I can respect that, he's Angus Scrim. But I just remember being able to walk in, breathe, have room to move my arms out because it wasn't, sardine cans in there. And it was so incredible. I mean, literally one of the most incredible experiences. D. Snyder was in the main ballroom just walking around. He didn't have no
Yeah.
bodyguard, and it gave me this false reality of what to expect, because I remember telling my wife, this was fantastic. We had a great time, and when we left, it was like, well, we're definitely coming back next year. And I feel like 2015 was where it really started to get nuts. And I've never had and it's not, I'm not blaming Texas Frightmare. As a matter of fact, everybody I've talked to that has gone to a number of conventions seem to think that that's one of the best organized ones, Texas Frightmare. And thank God they finally put us in a new venue where it's this massive, massive room. But I haven't been able to have an A+ experience because of prices,
Mm-hmm.
people,
Mm-hmm.
and just a lot of bullshit. And I respect the fact that these people want to make money, and they're doing their thing. It's so funny when I'll see you guys talk to Sean Clark sometimes. It's like, well, he represents all these people, and Sean always gets quiet when when like you guys may talk about convention stuff or whatever, or if other people do, because it's like, well, that's his business. But I mean,
Look, it's hilarious to me with Sean because like we have a mutual respect. We really do. Like we've known each other for almost 20 years probably. And we forget that that's what he does, right? Because he just seems like one of the guys. Like he just seems like when we're talking with him, we meet him at shows. But like this last this last show, Wes was like, we were all sitting around talking. We talked to him for about an hour, and like in the middle of that, Wes said something like, "I don't know, man." He's like, I remember." He was just saying this in passing. He was like, "I remember when we'd go to these shows and nobody was charging for autographs." And Sean Clark goes, "Yeah, and I remember when gas was 25 cents." He got all pissed off about it. Like, he's like, "Things change, motherfuckers. Like prices go up," and like I just forgot that that's kind of the world that that he lives in. You know what I mean? Like that
Yeah.
he up to that point, he's cool and everything, but like I mean, you can't
That's
really
it.
talk to him about conventions.
Right.
It's not gonna work out.
So, Uncle Bill, tell me about, if you can remember, the very first convention you went to. What was it? Was it a general horror convention, or did they kind of have these? I don't know if this is a thing anymore. I feel like there used to be Texas Chainsaw conventions or
Yeah,
things like that.
it was a general horror show, and I still think it might have been the best one. I still think it was something called Horror Find Weekend in Baltimore, Maryland. It doesn't exist anymore. Uh, it was a Day of the Dead, Dawn of the Dead, Night of the Living Dead reunion. That was the main things. And I think Anchor Bay was releasing the DVD Ultimate Edition of Dawn of the Dead,
Real quick, oh Bill, people are listening to this and they're saying, "What year is this?" So, do you remember?
2004.
Okay, good.
2004. Yeah,
2004.
20 years I've been going to conventions now. Actually, this year. Uh, so they had this was the awesome part about it. Like you would that's my favorite movie, by the way. So like you would walk around and they had these like posters. They don't do this shit anymore either, which I don't understand. I guess because they're not promoting things or anything like they used to, but they would have these posters like Anchor Bay had made, like stand up kind of posters on poles of like the ultimate edition, like when you walked around you would see all these different kind of like, posters and things like that of the release.
That sounds cool.
And it just you got really pumped about it, it was plastered all over everywhere, like, the specs and what was going to be on it and all this different stuff. And like, you talk about a different time. And this is a big part of why I think it was different too, because back then people still had stuff that a lot of these guys from the 80s and 90s still had stuff that they wanted to promote. They were still active in movies somehow or another. They were either like acting in them or doing, like, for Savini doing the effects, or actually Savini was acting and doing effects at that time. Or like Nicotero was doing something. He wasn't a part of the Walking Dead shit yet. He was just like doing some project. The people there still had something that they wanted to promote. So the point of the convention wasn't to make money for them. Really, the main point, that was a kind of a side byproduct. The main point was to promote some new kind of thing that they had going, or for like some company to promote something for them.
I never thought about
And
that.
yeah, that was the thing. So they didn't give a shit about really, like, they just wanted people to see the stuff that they were in, or buy the DVD, or yada yada yada, or do something like that.
Yeah.
So sometime, I don't know when it changed. That went on like that same way for like at least the next 5 years, like that. And then something changed and it became just everything was about the money. They didn't give a shit. They didn't really have any projects they were working on. They got older. Nobody was hiring them. Like, they were just there, and that was their career. Their career was now convention circuits. So everything became about the money.
When you look back on this first one, do you remember certain? I'm assuming a George Romero type would have been there, especially if this is like a Dawn
He
of
was
the Dead
there.
DVD.
Yeah.
Can you recall meeting him for the first
Yeah.
time?
Oh
Was it
God. Yeah.
what was
I
that
can
like?
recall that was probably like one of the most nervous times that I've ever had.
Do you remember if he still looked? I love George Murray. He's my hero. Was he the fat, jolly George, or was he the kind of more
He was
zombie, long white hair, skinny George?
he was getting into the zombie, but he was like in that transition. Like,
In the transition,
he wasn't big like Jolly George, and he wasn't like emaciated George yet. He was like in the middle, like where he still looked pretty healthy, and he was still
okay,
like, but he had the long ponytail. He had the big black rim glasses and everything like that.
right.
There's a picture. It's up on Deadpit. I think it's up on Deadpit Facebook, of me and Wes sitting like on either side of him. And that's the picture from that show. Uh, and he was great. He charged $20 for 2 items. I think that's right. It's 20 or 25 for, like, you could get 2 items signed. Think about that in comparison to the way things are now. Like,
Even just the way George was in his latter years at conventions too. I mean, he was getting very expensive.
yeah.
Now, he's somebody I can understand being pricier. I have a funny story I can tell you later on about Robert Russler making fun of Nev Campbell
Oh
to
God.
me,
Yeah.
but yeah. I mean, and was he promoting at that time what would have been Land of the Dead?
Let's see, 2004. Yeah, I guess Land of the Dead would have been coming up. I don't remember if that was in the works at that time or if he was just there to promote the Dawn of the Dead DVD.
DVD.
I'm not sure. Um, so I remember waiting in a long ass line to meet him, and it was long, still even for then, And he was great, and we sat down and we talked to him for a while. Like you can see the table that we're sitting at in the picture. Like that's where you would just you sat with him and just talked, for a period of time. And then they took your
Incredible.
picture, and the picture was free. Somebody would take your picture, with your camera or their camera or however you wanted to do it, and it
Was
was
this
free.
digital? Or did you have to go get it developed after?
I th- I think it was digital. I don't think they were doing the like developing still.
Hey.
It's a fair question though, and I just remember he was. But the thing I remember two things the most about that show. George was great, but the thing I remember the most is they had like a line of the Day of the Dead people and the Dawn of the Dead people, and the Day of the Dead people would shout lines from the movie to each other, and then would finish the lines. So Gary Clark, who was Steele, and then Captain Rhodes, who Joe Pilato, would like shout their lines and shit back and forth from their tables, and like act out the scenes and shit sometimes. I mean, that's what was going on then. It was fucking amazing. Like it was just a great atmosphere, to be in. And everybody was laughing, having a great time. And like there were really no lines. I mean, for them or anything like that. The biggest line was Romero by far. You just kind of walked up and you got your stuff signed. You could talk to anybody forever because there's maybe two or three people waiting behind you or something like that. Savini was free. He didn't charge for anything. Nicotero was free. He didn't charge to get his signature. I think Kane Hodder was free at that time.
Did you know you mentioned Savini?
Yeah.
Did you meet him at the first show?
That's he was the first person I ever met at a show. And you talk about a culture shock, weird kind of, because he was a dick. He was just he was fucking so he wasn't charging. I had this book that had Maniac on the cover. It's like a book of horror movie posters and things like that. Had Maniac on the cover. And I reached it to him and I was like, "Hey, I love this movie. Like, what was it like working on it?" And he was like, "Best fun I ever had, or most fun I ever had standing up." And he just signed it and then like gave it to me. He was eating like a plate of fucking cheese. He never looked up, just eating this cheese and these little, like ham things or whatever. And I'm just standing there. He never like said anything else, never looked up. It was such an awkward experience. I was so bummed. Like because he was the guy for me.
Right.
Like,
Absolutely.
and I,
I feel I feel guilty when I hear stories like that because when I met him, he couldn't have been warmer. And this was 2015 the first time I met him. I mean, truly couldn't have been warmer to me.
uh,
And
well,
I asked him about Night of the Living Dead directing that, and I was like, "I heard you really didn't have a good time." He's like, "No, I was way in over my head, blah blah blah." And he actually gave me some details, and I remember his charge was like 30, and I said, "Hey, I don't have, I didn't have like small enough bills for what it was. It might not have even been 30, and he didn't even charge me. He just like, don't worry about it, pal." And I feel guilty. I feel guilty because I hear horror stories about this. I always wonder if it's PTSD. I mean, the guy was in Vietnam and he was
well,
dealing with taking pictures of dead bodies for a living out there. And
yeah. I mean,
I
you
just,
wonder, like, yeah, like what happened, and like, he's an interesting guy. He has an interesting backstory, and there are like, you do wonder like what his psyche has to be like. You know
yeah,
what I mean? Like after going through all that stuff. I watched him at the last show the last Scare Fest that we went to, the one with all the Friday the 13th girls, and he was at that one too. And we were standing in line to meet Felissa Rose, and he was like on the other side. And I just kind of sit there and watched how his interactions were with fans because I've never met him again. Well, that's not true. I did meet him one time with Michael Felsher, but that was a setup. But uh, I've never gone up purposely to meet him again since that time. And like I just kind of watched him, how he interacted with people. And he was just kind of the same. Like he had a scarf on and shit, and he just looked down the entire time, and they would bring him something over. And I swear to God, they brought him stuff and he never looked up. He was just looking down, he would sign it, he would give it to him. If they said something, he might, nod or something, but he never really engaged anybody. I don't know what the story is with him. I hear mixed things now. I hear he's different. Like Like you said, I hear a lot of people say that now too, that he's great, and then I hear people still say that he's terrible. So I don't know. Maybe he's bipolar.
He put out a coffee table book maybe 2 years ago, and I'm admittedly a really big fan of Tom, and, I say admittedly, why can't I say that? But I got his coffee book, and I was reading about it, and he does acknowledge that he's been criticized of being cold, and I feel like he doesn't in his writing in the book, and he brought up the specific situation where, like, one girl was so upset she kinda walked away crying,
Yeah.
and in his writing in there, I think he doesn't process how he's coming across to people. If I had to take a real guess at that, but, um
Well, I would say that's probably true. And maybe part of the problem is people expect too much out of these people too. Uh, because,
how
you
nice can
know,
you be after you meet fucking 500 people in one day that
right.
speak their
And
life out of
how
you?
many times it,
What was
you
it
know,
like on what was it like? It's like, I'm sure you get a lot of the Chris Farley on Saturday Night Live, remember?
yeah,
Remember when you were in the Beatles? Like, I'm
yeah, but he's
like,
talking to McCartney.
you
Yeah.
know, you gotta wonder, and he seems like the guy that has a shorter fuse. I mean,
He
he's one
he
of those
he
Italian guys, he's old school Italian, man.
Yeah, and I imagine he's been asked every question you could ever be asked about Dawn of the Dead, Day of the Dead, all those movies, and so it's like, at this point, I'm sure he doesn't wanna answer, but that's where I have a problem with conventions, is because, like, I know that's true, but these people walking up to him don't know that a lot of times, like,
Yeah.
I didn't know that when I first walked up to him. I didn't even consider that. I was just, like, super excited to meet somebody, and, like, wanted to ask him about, like, one of the movies that I really like.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's like, I'm sure Kiss sometimes didn't wanna play, Detroit Rock City, but, I mean, that's why people are going to see him, so you gotta suck it
Right,
up.
right.
Do you remember, who else was at this first show you went to?
Yeah, so, Kane Hodder, I think Kane Hodder's been at every show I've ever been to, by the way, and
This is
that's
probably when
maybe.
his hair was still black.
Yeah, it was. That's maybe no exaggeration either. I'm not positive he's ever not been to a show that I've gone to.
Yeah.
And, let's see, you had all the people from Day of the Dead, and I mean literally all of the people at that time. All of the people from Dawn of the Dead, all of the people. You had John Russo, you had Russ Striner, you had,
Oh, I was gonna
uh
ask about the Night of Living Dead people.
yeah, Night of the Living Dead people, they were all there. I don't
Russo's
remember if Judith O'Day was there,
yeah.
maybe, and then, you had, like, I think a couple people from Reanimator. I think Tom Sullivan was there, and, Jeffrey Combs maybe. Yeah, Jeffrey Combs was there because I have that in that same poster book, there's a Reanimator poster I have signed, so there was, like, a couple people from Reanimator being there too.
Yeah, Russo's still kicking. He's 83. I'd love to meet him, but unfortunately, it seems like he only does, like, Mahoning drive-ins and kinda stuff local to where he's at. I don't think he's ever come to Texas Frightmare, but, I mean, anybody from Night of the Living Dead I'd love to meet, so I'm hoping I can still meet him. That's a cute
Yeah,
dog.
yeah, that's Princess Puffins. You don't fuck with the pup. She's
So
like,
so on this convention, I think another thing I'm trying to picture in my head in 2004 is how, I guess you could, on a percentage base, 0 being no people, I mean, and 100 being completely maxed out. What percentage was this building occupied to?
50%, I would say. Like, nothing like what you see now, like with these shows like Horror Hound and Texas Frightmare and stuff like that, nothing like that. You could move, you could walk, you could, like, like I said, you may have, for a lot of those people, 3 or 4 people waiting on them, maybe. Romero had a long line. I don't remember anybody else having a long line. Oh, Doug Bradley was there too. He had kind of a long line considering, like, the people that were there.
Right.
But
This was when
yeah,
he
the
was
rest.
still in the throes of kind of making some of those.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, usually, like, at that time, a lot of these
Was he
guys still had
promoting
projects.
was he promoting Hellraiser Deader?
Inferno. I don't remember which one was out at that time, but I'm sure it wasn't great. Yeah. Uh yeah, and it was that show had two levels. So you had, like, the top level, and then it had, like, an escalator that went down to a bottom level, and that's where, like, so I recall the vendors were in one spot, the celebrities were in another spot.
Right.
Um I don't know why the fuck they put vendors with celebrities nowadays. It's so weird to me.
It is weird. I wanted to ask you though, you're talking about this kind of being like a big Anchor Bay Dawn of the Dead party. Did
Yeah.
you pick up the Anchor Bay DVD at this convention?
No, and I don't think it was out yet. I think that they were promoting it like it was upcoming.
That's
So
fair enough, but I mean, I always wonder myself. I mean, I imagine pretty much everybody at the convention's already planning on getting Dawn of the Dead
oh yeah,
DVD.
yeah.
You know,
I mean, and that was like the first time it had been out. It's been out of print forever at that point.
right?
And then they were coming out with this big deluxe Ultimate Edition, which is still one of the best editions of any movie ever. Like the way that they designed that is amazing.
So, so after this, I mean, I'm sure this is like, with all things considered, you know, with a less than jolly Tom Savini, I'm assuming you leave this convention and you're like, this was so cool. I can't wait to go to another one.
Yes,
Hopefully meet like Gunnar Hansen or meet this person.
yes.
And, you know, do you have any memories over the next, let's say to about 2009, 2008 of conventions that you went through that were really landmark moments for you?
Yeah, because like when we left that show, I think we knew like we were going back to shows. Like that was going to be our thing. Like like Wes and I kind of realized at that point that we were going to be going to shows a lot.
Right.
It was a really good experience other than like the Savini thing. The next year, he didn't go for some reason. I don't know why he didn't go. I went back. It was 2005. That was the year Bruce Campbell was there. Oh God, who else was there? So Bruce Campbell was the main guy, but I cannot for life. I swear to God, man, like I waited in that line for 3 or 4 hours. I'm not positive if I got anybody else's autograph at that show because that line was like that's probably the longest I've ever waited in anything. Was at
Bruce Campbell.
2005 Horror Find Bruce Campbell. Yeah. And then 2005 Nashville. I went to the Nashville Full Moon Tattoo and Horror Convention, which had like Lloyd Kaufman was there, Gunnar Hansen was there, Jesus, a bunch of other people that were like like Scream Queens and things like that. That seemed to be the thing that year. Like Tiffany Shepis was there, Brink Stevens was there, Debbie Rochon was there, a lot of people like that, and that was a great show.
When you say Full Moon Tattoo and Horror Festival, this is not Charlie Band's Full Moon.
No, this is just completely unrelated. The guy does this in, I think it's around Nashville,
Right.
where that
And
show
yeah, I
is.
noticed it's got to be a pretty reputable show because it's still going.
Yeah,
I know they had that this past year, or they had that maybe a month ago.
back then it was like they got some pretty big names at that time. Like when they're I don't know how that's going now, but like it was pretty big. Oh, that's also where I met Marilyn Chambers from Rabid, who was the porn star, and I was in an elevator with her, and I was talking to her. There's this other guy in the elevator, and I was talking to her, and I was like, "So, what was it like working with David Cronenberg?" And she was like, "Well, he was like really, really quiet, and yada yada yada." And this guy thought that David Cronenberg was like a porn star, and he was like, "Yeah, I bet you like working with him." And she goes, "No," she was real nice about it. She's like, "No, honey." She was like, "He wasn't a porn star. He was a director."
Oh my God.
Like, yeah. But she was great too.
Do you remember? Go ahead. Please go ahead. No,
I was
please.
just gonna say, now keep in mind, all of that was before we started the show. I'm pretty sure all of that happened like up to that point before we started. Now, once we started the show, that's when we really started doing conventions. And really not too long after we started the show, a bunch of new conventions started popping up, like Fright Night Film Festival, which is in Louisville for a while. I don't think they're doing that anymore. Horror Hound got started.
Yeah.
Scarefest got started all around the same time. And we just started going to all those shows like every year, like had kind of like a circuit almost of shows that were there.
And I'm sure by this point, you guys probably use these conventions as a promotional tool for Deadpit, right?
Yeah. By 2000, I'd say 7 or 8, can't remember which, we were popular enough that we were getting invited as like guests to the shows.
No kidding.
And yeah, we
Yeah.
were guests at Whorehound, we were guests at Fright Night, we were guests at Scarefest for the first, I don't know, 5 years maybe we were guests at Scarefest.
Wow.
We did the panel. I don't know if a lot of people know this, but when they first had the reunion panel for Friday the 13th, the first film, when Adrian King and Betsy Palmer and all of them were there and everything. And they had the Q&A panel. We did the moderation for the Q&A panel at the first. I think that was the first Scarefest. I have
Wow.
to go back and look. Is one of the first two or three. But I thought it might have been the first. I don't know. I may be wrong about that. But we were part of that. And that was amazing. And we did something else that year too. But they would always let us do like our little things like drunken commentaries and shit, and like, we'd have a movie playing and like get a group of people together and goof on it, and yeah.
Damn. That's so cool. Do you remember having your first really bad post Tom Savini, of course? Because I want to preface that I'm not asking you this question to rag on an actor or rag on somebody, but I really want to drill it home to people that are thinking about going to these, that not everybody is America's sweetheart, and not everybody is just going to be truly nice to you when you go to meet these people, despite the fact you're giving them fucking money.
Yeah.
But do you recall any situations where you were just kind of like, fuck that guy or fuck that woman after meeting them?
Yeah. One very particular one that didn't even happen to me. But I've had several experiences like that. And the one that most stands out in my mind, though, is one that happened to CK, the Creepy Kentucky and West. And we were both standing there. And he went up to meet Miguel Nunez, who played
Spider and Friday 5.
yeah, Friday 5. And he was in Return of the Living Dead, and he was in,
I've heard a number of horror stories about
Juwanna
Miguel Nunez.
Man. He was in Juwanna Man too.
Scooby Doo. He was
Scooby Doo.
the
And
anyway.
I'm not exaggerating when I say this. Wes walks up to, I'm behind Wes. Wes walks up to him. I'm getting ready to get my shit signed after Wes. He walks up to him. He's on the phone. He doesn't get off the phone when Wes walks up. He's talking to whoever he's talking to. Wes puts his things down like to get signed, tries to talk to him. He doesn't acknowledge him. He's talking to him on the phone. He's talking on the phone still. He signs whatever while he's still talking on the phone. He gets up, walks over like to take a picture with him, takes the phone, puts it behind his back. They take the picture. He puts the phone back and just goes back and sits down. I don't think he ever said one word to him, and talked on the phone the entire time. And then I was watching this. I was like, fuck that guy. There's no chance
So
that I'm
you
going up
didn't.
there. No, I was like, I'm not doing that. Like, there's no fucking way. And then for the past, I don't know, 10 or 12 years, we've been ragging on that fucking guy. And I know, like you said, I know multiple people that have had bad experiences with him, not just at shows, but not just at conventions, but on shows and different stuff like that. It's you don't want anything to do. I mean, not in my opinion, with that guy. The other one, which was for completely different reasons, Richard Lynch. I don't know if you remember Richard Lynch. He was in Bad Dreams. He was in Invasion USA. He's the guy that's kind of face is kind of
He's
scarred
kind of
up.
got a scarred up face.
Always
Yeah.
plays it.
Talent.
Always,
Super
yeah,
talented dude. He was
awesome
in
actor.
Puppet Master 3. Yeah.
Yeah, he always plays these really good character roles.
Right. This is
Walk
sad
up to
already.
him. Yeah, it is. I walk up to him. He's drunk, high, and or both, out of his mind, to the point. Like, I have an Invasion USA poster. It's original one sheet. I hand it to him. Unfolding it, he unfolds it like this, rips it like straight down the middle of the poster, like straight down the middle. He rips it in two. And he's like, "Oh shit, I'm sorry." His handler or whatever is the guy that ran those Days of the Dead conventions. I can't remember his name now. I wish I could. I can't though. He was a pretty good dude though. And he watched all this go down, and he's like trying to sign it, and he's barely able to sign it and talk or anything like that.
Jeez.
It's already ripped in two. And his handler's like, "Man, just like, I'm sorry, like you don't have to take your money." Like, he didn't charge me, and he gave me, like, he was just like, "I'm sorry about all this." So that was another one though where I was like, man, like, this guy is just like, fuck this, because that poster is ruined. I still have it somewhere. It's like torn in half. I remember that experience, and then I remember there's been quite a few now that I think about it. But the other big one that I remember was, and I was pretty excited about this too. You have certain people like I have a ton of stories about people who I met that was just kind of like an okay experience. Like you might have 30 seconds to talk to them, like Robert England, um, Kane Hodder, people like that. You just kind of go through the line and like it's just like, hey, how you doing? Like I'm doing good. Like you working on anything? Blah, blah, blah. And it's just you're out. Like you don't really have time to fucking do anything, right?
How
Got
about
a
this weather?
ton. I got a ton of stories like that where it's just like that happened.
Yeah.
There's very few that like stand out for being either really good or really bad. Um, but the other really bad one was fucking Tony Moran.
I'm
Uh,
all ears.
so Tony, it was the same thing as Tom Savini.
Hey, can I cut you off for just a second? Because
Yeah, go ahead.
I really want to get some pretext on this. So, if for people that may not be aware, Tony Moran literally plays Michael Myers for a half a second in
Half a
Halloween.
second. Yeah.
Has his mask comes off during the 2000 late 2000s, early 2010s, unbeknownst to a lot of us, because conventions, as you're describing, were really more of a cult thing.
Yes.
He was doing interviews saying anything that could get you canceled today. Some of it is so outlandish, I have no problem admitting. I just laugh at it because to me, it's almost shtick. It's almost Comedy Central stuff, how outlandish it is, albeit it's really fucked up stuff he's saying. Talking about like banging Tyler Mane in the face and
Yeah.
in a more crude way to put you guys like this. Before you tell me this story, I want to
Yeah.
ask you this. These clips have now resurfaced. Are you aware during this time? I'm assuming this is somewhere in the late 2000s that he is doing these interviews drunk off his ass, talking shit, saying F Halloween fans, you guys are a bunch of marks and
No,
shit like that.
and honestly, like I remember Sean Clark saying when he first came in,
He was a
he was like
sweetheart.
he was a sweetheart. He's the model guy. He had no idea you could make money doing this kind of thing. So he was like on his best behavior. Somewhere in the middle of all that, he gets sloppy ass drunk during all these shows, and like the real, guy starts coming out and he starts saying all these things, right? So this was somewhere in between those two times. He wasn't drunk off his ass at the table at that point, but he wasn't like super like nice guy either. So it was the same thing as Tom Savini. You walk up there, here's a guy, man, that should be like kissing everybody's ass for paying him anything.
Yeah.
He, was in this movie for like a second and he has the worst attitude. Just arrogant. It was just like trying to talk to him. He's like, well, yeah, you know how he's got that fucking accent. I can't even do the accent. It's like that Bronx accent or whatever he tries to pull off.
It's a shitty
Yeah.
accent.
He's like, yeah, man, like I fucking know, he was just everything you would try to ask him. He's like, I don't really fucking like that stuff that much. I don't like, horror movies and shit that much. I don't, I don't get it. You try to like get any kind of information, like, and it was just a run around kind of like him cussing and doing that stupid accent that I wanted to punch, him in the face. And I think CK had a similar experience with him trying to get something signed where he just fucking like, it wasn't good either. I don't remember exactly what happened with him, but like he came back and I remember him talking about it as like it was just nothing, nothing really good came out of it. There's a lot of mediocre experiences that I've had at shows, and then there's some really bad ones, and then there's some really great ones too.
I
If
think it'd
I
be
could,
good to hear a couple about those. That way people
yeah,
can see.
yeah, like, and here's the thing, like most of these really great ones sadly took place 10, 15 years ago. I haven't had like a lot of really great ones happen in the last 10 or 15 years, but back in the day, people would party with you. They would like, it was just much more kind of like, I don't know, just like social. Like literally, you can go. There's a Deadpit video of where I think it's still up somewhere where Wes got a bunch of horror celebrities together to tell me to go fuck myself for missing a show. And it's like big name people that you wouldn't expect. I think Bill Mosley's in that. So it's like they would like mess around and like do stuff with you, after hours and stuff like that. So I remember having, going back and having like beers with John Dugan, who played Grandpa in Texas Chainsaw Massacre. He was fucking hilarious. I remember, having breakfast with Kevin Tenney, who directed Night of the Demons. I remember,
Damn.
Tiffany Shepis. There's a picture. Like, she was fucking amazing, man. Like, I wish Tiffany Shepis. I wish old Tiffany Shepis would come back. She cut my hair at a show and like, kind of fake cut my hair at a show, and she was just great. Like, you jump up on her back, she'd carry you around. It was just that kind of like, atmosphere. And after the show ended, everybody would be out in the main parts of the hallways and stuff partying. And like, there was no VIP parties and shit like they have now where they charge like whatever to go to a bar or anything like that. Like,
Right.
that people would just kind of like be out partying like wherever. And it would usually be a lot of the horse celebs and stuff too. So everybody would kind of do that. And we had great experiences with a bunch of people like that. Um, I had great experiences, like, just not in that context, but just going up and meeting people. Betsy Palmer was outstanding, man. Like, she was everything you hoped that she would be, like, just appreciative and sassy and fucking cussing and
Mm,
just everything you would hope that that woman would be. She was. She was great.
amazing.
Adrian King was great. Um, oh god, man, Harry Manfredini, the guy who did the music for Friday the 13th, like, he was an amazing dude to meet. He would talk to you about music like for as long as you wanted to talk to him. He like would see us at shows and stuff like that, and like invite us over to his table, and we would sit around and talk and shit. He was a great guy.
Amazing. I haven't met him yet. I
I
haven't. I
mean,
don't think he goes to Texas Frightmare a lot. I'd like to for sure.
yeah, he's a great guy.
Even though it's me and Wes joked about when I watched Slaughter High for the first time years ago, mind you. I was like, there's something very familiar about this movie. I know I haven't seen it, but there's something very familiar. And Wes is like, yeah, because it's the fucking Friday the 13th score.
Yeah,
It's
it
the
is.
same.
Except for that horrible first part, that dun dun dun, that little first part. Like, everything else is like directly lifted from Friday the 13th. Yeah.
Did you?
Uh,
I'm sorry. Go ahead. If you
oh,
got
go
more
ahead. Yeah, go
people,
ahead. Sorry. No, I
um,
mean, I could go on all day about it. I mean, there's been a lot of good experiences. I'm not going to
sure.
bullshit and say there weren't.
But
But yeah.
your fear is that those days are kind of behind you because the conventions are so homogenized now, and so it's almost like a factory, and you're just a spoke on the conveyor belt. You go in, meet, go, and then it's like there's
Yeah.
no time to.
To give you an idea of how shitty things have gotten, um, in 2000, I don't remember. I'm gonna fuck this. I'm horrible with dates, man. It was one of those Fright Night Film Fests in Louisville, and I think it was around 2010 or 11, somewhere in there. I don't know. The one that John Carpenter was at. Somebody can look that up. John Carpenter would go outside and smoke a cigarette, and people would just go outside and smoke cigarettes with him and talk to him.
People would take up smoking to go out there and smoke
Yes,
cigarettes with him.
you would wait because he took a cigarette break about every 5 minutes, and so you would just wait, and you'd go outside, and people would just talk to him. He had no problem with it, and he'd come back. He was a crusty old fucker to meet too. But I mean, like, when you met him in that context, like when you went up to him with something to sign, try to talk to him about movies, I'm like, you probably shouldn't do that. If you went outside and talked to him about basketball or wrestling or something like that, fine, worked out great. But you could do that then. Like, you don't ever get to. They're surrounded by
No,
assholes
he
now.
would be
Like,
he would be yeah, it'd be a swarm if he tried to do that now.
yeah, and even like, I mean, nowadays people like Warwick Davis have bodyguards and stuff at these shows. Like, they have people that walk with them and handlers and agents and things like that. Like, all these
Oh, you
guys.
know what, Buncle Bill? I gotta say though, I think some of these people genuinely need it. I mean no disrespect, but some people I see at these conventions, Uncle Bill, they don't understand what the personal bubble is.
Well, that's true. That is true. I'll give you that. Like, maybe some of these people do need that, but it's like nobody got hurt to my knowledge back in the day when they were all just mingling around and shit. you
Yeah.
know,
Oh
that
well,
was just a
yeah,
different
absolutely.
time. But
I'd love to ask you this question. It's a yes or no question, but please elaborate because I hear this all the time, especially from veterans of the convention going experience. The question is The Walking Dead ruined horror conventions.
I don't know the exact answer to that. I've heard that a million times. Sean Clark would probably know the answer to that better than I
Well,
would,
he
but
would have. He would have. I
he would.
know his answer is no. It made
It
them
made,
great.
yeah, yeah,
Made him.
it's
It made
made
conventions
conventions.
great again. So we'll exclude Sean Clark,
Yeah,
and we love Sean Clark. That's his business. We understand that, but let's exclude him from the question.
I can tell you this, right? Like if you were looking at a timeline of when things started to get shitty, there's a definite parallel between the Walking Dead people coming into conventions and things steadily getting higher and higher and higher. Is that because of them? Is it just because of like, other, things? I don't know. I don't know the answer. I mean, we all assume that that's why it is, but I don't know if maybe they just all didn't
I
decide
should.
to up
I
their
should.
shit.
I should elaborate because I think it's a little too. It's a little too much of a broad stroke. Walking Dead caused conventions to become overpopulated.
Yes.
Um, if this person's charging X, well, Tobin Bell is as big a star as Daryl. Tobin Bell should be charging $100 in a
Yeah.
private room to get autographs. I just wonder the trickle down effect.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I've had conversations with people who were in the know about that kind of thing, and that did happen. It was egos. A lot of what happened, no joke, was nothing more than egos. It was like people like, and I'll just use her an example. I don't, she has, but like Daniel Harris would see one of the Walking Dead people charging $80, and she's like, "Well, what the fuck, man? I'm charging 20. Like, I'm not doing that. Like, I'm at least going to charge like 40 or something, like." And so that really did happen that way. Now that part I do know, like that they started comparing their prices to other people, maybe not just The Walking Dead, but just like other convention celebrities and stuff in general. And some people started getting it in their heads that they were worth as much as like these bigger name guys that were actively working and doing like Robert England's and, you know, all these other, they started to think, well, I'm in that kind of league. So they start raising their prices. And then the other people like notice it and they're like, wow, it doesn't seem to be hurting them. People will still pay it. So they start raising all their prices. And then the thing that really killed conventions, in my opinion, was the photo op. I remember when those fuckers first came in. I'm old enough to remember when that company, I'm not going to name them, but we talked about it on the show when it happened. And I was like, this is the worst thing that's ever happened to conventions. I've said that on the show, like back in the day when it happened. So this professional photo op company came in and was like, because before then you could just take pictures at the table. Nobody charged for pictures. Nobody even like thought that
It
was
wasn't
a
even a thought,
thing.
right?
No, you just like assume like, okay, I've paid you like 20 or $30 for your signature. Like I should take a picture with you. That's common sense. It used to be. And then these people came in, they're like, no, we got an idea. Like, a professional photographer. So you can have like a prom night photo, like with your favorite horse celebrity that, will look like a prom night photo, by the way. At best, at worst, there'll be a fucking chunk of glass in between you after COVID or a set of fucking building blocks or something like that.
I'd love to
But
talk about that in a second.
yeah, but like then, like year by year, more people started doing that and less people started doing selfies and stuff like that at their table. They started charging for the photo ops. The photo ops started making more and more money. It just became part of the carnival, like another game. And that just spiraled to where then they started dressing up in costumes and then they could jack their price up. So if you could do a photo op for, $40 with Kane Harder, you could do one for 80 if he was dressed up like,
Jace Takes Manhattan.
Jason, yeah, or something like that. It's a crock of shit, man. I hate it. Like I hate all that, to be honest.
Yeah, so it's more of a spectacle, and you're not being able to sit down and talk to, George Romero or some of these other actors from Day of the Dead and just talk to them and ask them nerdy questions and be able to hear them as
Yeah.
well. Because now it's just it's white noise inside of these rooms too, just
Yeah, you
genuine
can.
white noise, and you can't really sing, you can't really relax too, especially if you want to ask a question when you have an army of people standing behind you, waiting to you know, get whatever they want to get signed.
Right. And it's just, you kind of question a lot of these people's motives about getting this shit signed as well, too. Like some people come in with like 10 different things. It's like, what are you doing? Like, Are you really getting all that shit signed? Or are you just going to go like right out and try to sell it on eBay, which doesn't work now, by the way.
Well, I was gonna
Because
say, I
those,
mean, if I respect people that will do that as opposed to like stalking Rob Zombie at LAX to get him to sign 15. And most of these actors refuse to even sign at these places.
yeah,
There's famous videos of George Lucas just telling people to get a job when they catch him outside of the airport trying to get him to sign a bunch of stuff. Like,
yeah. I mean,
and
there's
he'll say, "What's your name?" No name, sir. Not signing. Like, because he's trying to sabotage it so they can't
yeah.
sell it. You know.
Well, that's man, back in the day. We did it for the love of the game, though. Like all of my early shit is fucking personalized. Like
Of course.
it wasn't even a thought to like get them to just like not put your name on it. It was to try to sell it. That wasn't even a fucking thing.
Right.
But I guess that's become like it was for a while. I don't think you can get anything out of that unless it's like, you know, some rare guy that doesn't do any conventions or anything. But you're not going to get money out of Kane Hodder signatures anymore. I'm
No.
sorry.
Did you meet? I'm very fortunate to have an autograph, a personalized autograph from him, but he's never come down to Texas. Have you ever met Sean Cunningham? Because he's pretty high on my list of people to
Yeah.
meet. I'm such a fan
Yeah.
of his.
We met him at a Whorehound show. I'm pretty sure it was a Whorehound show. Yeah. Steve Miner was there and Sean Cunningham was there. I'm thinking at the same time. And we met both of them. I can't remember the year. I told you I'm horrible with years, but yeah.
Well, I'm assuming it was a good experience with Sean.
Yeah.
At least decent.
It wasn't a bad experience because I don't remember it being bad.
Yeah.
I remember Steve Miner being just fine. Like there's a picture somewhere on Facebook of me and him together. It was fine. Like I don't remember any of those being bad.
Are you more of a picture guy or an autograph guy? Because I'm more of a picture guy, and I've never done a photo op, but there's something for me that like I can go, and I hate waiting in lines. I'm extremely impatient. Do I regret not waiting in line just to shake George Romero's hand? I absolutely do. But at the time, I would justify it like I'm not waiting in line. I'm way too impatient, but I can see him. Like he's in my line of vision, which is pretty cool. Where do you fall? Are you more into the autographs or the pictures?
Autographs. I mean, I like the pictures just as kind of like a moment in time kind of thing, where you can look back and be like, okay, I met this guy, I did this, like, and this was the point in time. But for some reason, I've just always just enjoyed like getting somebody's autograph. I don't know what I don't really have that fixation anymore. I kind of like went through that, but like for a long time, it was a big thing. And I tell you what, part of it is too, is just being a completist about shit too. Like if they have a reunion where everybody's at it, I want to do that. Like
Yeah.
I want to.
That happens, I think, somewhat unintentionally for me. Dana Ashbrook was supposed to be at Scarefest 2 years ago, and I have everybody from Return of the Living Dead. That's alive, mind you. I can't have James Karen, but I have Tom Matthews, Suzanne Snyder. I've got the kid, and I need Dana Ashbrook. And he canceled to go to a Twin Peak convention, which I can't blame him. A little bit more fans for that than Return of the Living Dead Part 2.
Yeah, I guarantee it. Yeah.
But yeah, I think that happened to me, albeit unintentionally. I just realized, you know what? If I get Dana, that's pretty much the main cast that's still alive. So, I don't want to end this on. Let me ask you this: did you get a relationship with Michael Felsher through conventions? Because I've heard stories about how you would kind of hang out with him at some of these shows, and I even heard a story about how you guys found out they were putting out Walmart cult DVDs with a bunch of shitty horror film. I say shitty, excuse me, with a bunch of the cult horror movies that we love, like 976 Evil 2. And apparently you guys left the convention to go to Wally World. Can you recall that?
Yeah, that happened. Like it was back in the day when they did those. I think there were 8 films on like something. And it was, there were certain ones that were super rare and had never been released on DVD.
Just
and
for
so,
reference for the people.
Yeah, those were them. Yeah. And the one right there, you're holding right there, that 8 one, not that one, but the other one, the one with waxwork. That was the one everybody was trying to get at the
976 Evil 2 this is it right here, Bill.
Yeah, it had waxwork and it had Slaughter High, which I don't think had been released on anything at that point. And so like they would have them in these dump bins, they called them, with just a whole bunch of other DVDs. So literally people would jump in these things. They would like, they would dive into them and like get the like throw the DVDs out on the floor and stuff, trying to get like these super rare, and they went for a lot of money at that time too. Super rare, like
I
you know,
blissfully got them at my Walmart bill. Just happened to find them. So I didn't. I wasn't aware of the rat race, but did you
yeah.
find them at this? Did you find them at this?
No, we didn't find them at that show at all, but it was fun looking for them. Like, yeah, Felcher and everybody just went to a Walmart and went through like a dump bin and tried to find those titles.
How'd you meet Michael Felcher?
Felcher, I think here's an interesting story about that too. And I think he brings it up on one of the early Deadpit shows because I don't think he realized it for a long time. I had written to Michael Felcher probably in 2002 or 2003 when I would write to horror people and just like send them stuff, people connected to horror films or DVDs or things like that. And Felcher was doing Red Shirt Pictures at that time. This is 2003, 2004, I guarantee.
Wow.
And he was working on special features. And I wrote to him and I was like, hey, man, like, I love your special features on this particular movie or whatever. Would you sign something for me? And he signed it and sent it back. And like, so that was my first interaction with Felcher. And then a couple years later, we started doing the show and he was working, doing the Red Shirt Pictures thing. And I think that's how we came in contact with him, is we asked him to be on the show because he was doing special features for a lot of these movies that we were
Right.
super interested in at the time. I'm not sure if it was Anchor Bay at the time. Probably was. Anchor Bay was probably still going at that time, but he was doing it for a lot of other companies and stuff too.
So he's done Red Shirt Pictures for a number of years.
Oh,
I didn't
yeah.
realize he had been rocking and rolling since then.
Yeah, and I can't remember what I sent to him either. But I've still got it somewhere. And that's how we came to know Felcher. And then at shows and stuff like that, we would just always meet up. We would go out and we would have dinner. We'd go out to record stores and like just look at records and things like that, movie stores. And we did that for a great number of years until Felcher got all fucking hoity-toity, whatever the hell it is he's doing now. Trying to make Trick or Treat come out.
You want to know what my first viewing, the first time I saw Michael Felcher was? This was before I knew him by name or anything. I kind of really started to know him by name through you guys. Friday the 13th, Part 5, The Making of. And this was the first time I heard somebody defend the movie. He's like, Friday is great, and like the people making fun of it, it's all bullshit or something. And then Tom Savini shows up, they do a little skit. And that was my first time seeing Michael Felcher. I'd love to know how he got involved with that. I didn't know if Red Shirt Pictures worked on the special features for those DVDs or not, but yeah, he opens up the Friday the 13th Part 5 making of on the deluxe edition DVDs at the Crystal Lake, the red ones that came out in 2008 or 9. So that's my first time seeing him. I always thought he was really funny in that.
Have you ever seen the video of him back when he did I forget what it was. It was at Monroeville Mall, and he looks like he's probably about 25 years old. It's hilarious, man.
No, I don't think I have.
It's at some Romero convention or something like that. I'll have to send you the link because he can't be any more than like 20, 25 or 26 years old. It's just funny to see him back at that time. And he's still like representing like Romero in those films and stuff, even then. There's a funny story with Felcher though, real quick, where like he had heard, I think it was through Wes, about the experience that I had with Savini. And so he was like, he went over to Savini, and first he told me, like, go over to Savini and talk to him because, like, he's a completely different person now. Like, he really wants to, like, talk to you and apologize. I don't know if he said apologize, but he just said he really wants to talk to you, and he'll,
specifically you, or just, hey,
just me. Felcher was saying that to me about Savini. So in the meantime, he goes to Savini and says, hey, when this kid comes up here, act like the biggest fucking prick that you can, because he knows the backstory with me and Savini. I walk up to him and I've got like something that I was going to like talk to him about and get inside. And I was like, yeah, man. He's like, I said something like, I really love some movie. And he goes, yeah, fuck that movie.
Did he break and start laughing?
Well, Felcher broke first because Felcher's like standing over here. So he starts dying laughing after a couple minutes. And then like Savini started like dying laughing. But yeah, that's why I said he set me up. Like that's what he did. And that was a pretty cool experience.
And that was the last time you talked to Tom, you think, or?
That was the last time that I, talked to
So
Savannah.
he made it right, whether it was is on his own
Yeah,
fruition or not. You know.
yeah. In his own way, I guess he kinda acknowledged it. Yeah.
So, Uncle Bill, I want to kind of end this. I really don't want to end this on a negative note, but I do think it's important for people to see how these things have changed and basically how much more incredibly packed and and expensive they've gotten. But somebody's asking you right now, Uncle Bill, I'm going to my first convention. What should I do? What should I plan for? And I'm going for 1 day.
Um,
And you can't let them get upset about that. You really have to be
I have to
supportive.
sell it to him, you
Well,
mean?
that's just but really prepare them, be honest with them, but
Okay. I would say, like, listen, everything in that whole show is gonna be overpriced. Like, number one thing you need to know, like, so you need to take if you wanna do anything, you have to take a shit ton of money. Um,
what is a shit ton
any
of money?
I'd say you need at least $1,000 to have, like, any kinda decent time, and if you're buying stuff at a horror convention. So, and let's say I would tell them too, like, let's say you wanna meet somebody. Well, the people that are, barely known from cult films that you might like are gonna be anywhere between 40 to $60 a piece. If you wanna take a picture with them, it's gonna be an extra, like, 20 or $30 a piece.
Okay.
So, right there, you're looking at, like, 60 to $80 for, like, those people. If you wanna meet somebody big like Robert Englund, you're talking about upwards of, like, $200. That's what I would tell them. I would tell them, like, you're going to be spending a ton of money. But more importantly than any of that, I would say if you're going to go to a convention, don't do any of that shit. Don't take any fucking pictures. Don't meet anybody. You're going to meet them and you're going to have at best an okay experience. And at worst, it's going to be like altering your perception of these people for the rest of your life. So just don't fucking even worry about that. Go to a show with people that like movies. Go to a show and meet up with people that like horror films, the same kind of things that you do, and buy some stuff from the vendors. Like talk about films with them. Most of those people are much more appreciative than any of those celebrities could ever be for like you buying stuff, especially the independent like labels. Go around and look at that stuff. Like go to Synapse's table, go to fucking Troma's table, go to a, Masker Videos table or something
Mhm.
like that. Like, and then more importantly, probably than any of that stuff, after the show's over with, hang around and fucking party. Because that's generally the best part of it is like you meet a bunch of people that like exactly the same stuff as you. You go out, you party with them, you have a good time, you have stuff to talk about.
Do you ever do you, and I 100% agree with all of that. Now, I'm not necessarily saying this is in everybody's DNA to do this, but because I'm somewhat of a salesman myself, I usually like to finagle with some of these
Yeah.
vendors. Do you ever, for instance, I'm not going to say the name of the t-shirt company because I don't want to make people just hear me say this and they go up to them. But there's one t-shirt company where I'll ask, how much for 2 shirts? And they'll say, shirts are blank a piece." And I'll say, "But how much for 2?" Or, and I'll try to finagle with them. And I sometimes they're on Sundays, I used to go to conventions on Sundays, but because with my work schedule, it really is just way easier for me to get off on a Saturday as opposed to a Sunday. I've been going on Saturdays, but I will say if I can add to what you're saying, if you are a vendor junkie like me, while Sunday is going to have the less stock, a lot of times I don't think I've ever been in a position where there's stuff that was just completely sold out that I was really looking forward to, depending on the vendor and what you're into, especially clothing. But Sundays, a lot of those people don't want to pack all that shit back up,
Yep. Completely forgot about that. That's a great point. If you're gonna
especially
do
full
that,
moon. Full moon will practically give you DVDs. I'm
if
not even
any
kidding.
of them, any of them will discount them on Sunday. That's a great point. Like most any vendor that's selling Blu-rays and things like will discount everything on Sunday. Because like you said, they don't want to pack it up. They want to get rid of all that shit. Most of the time, like the people that are working those shows are given those, given a huge lot of 4Ks or Blu-rays or DVDs to go out and sell by the company. And then they got to pack all that shit back themselves. They're just guys that are like volunteers and things like that, doing that. So it's like they don't want to do that. So they're kind of given free reign, like you said, to cut prices and things like that on pretty much anything as it gets closer to the end of the show. So it's a great point. Yeah.
Mhm. So, guys, I just thought this would be really interesting to hear Uncle Bill's history with conventions, how much they've changed, how much I wish I could experience one of these. But listen, I know a lot of you people want to go out and meet these actors, all these scream actors right now. It's an explosion. I don't get it myself, but hey, I mean, maybe I'm out of that age range to get that. But the fact is, if you're a Scream fan, they're taking over these conventions. But Jesus Christ, people, be prepared to wait in line.
Fine, yeah.
The only thing I will say is I have not heard a single person. If you are looking to have a great experience, I don't know if Uncle Bill could can add to this as well, but I literally have not heard one person say they've had anything less than an amazing experience with Matthew Lillard. Uh, so if
That's
you
true. Yeah.
so if you are going to meet any of those Scream people and you want to have a great experience, people love Matthew Lillard, and I think he really appreciates the fans. So, and that's another thing. I mean, I also recommend watching reviews. People on YouTube
Mhm.
now, and including Uncle Bill, they do what's called recap videos. They give you their breakdown of the show. They give you their breakdown of what it was like. Watch some of this stuff and please be prepared. Be over prepared for these conventions because um if you're not, it could be the biggest disappointment of your life, and it is expensive. So yeah, you gotta
Yeah, I
bring
mean,
money.
one thing we really didn't talk about too much either is like you can't move at these shows now. I just want you to know that. Like if you're claustrophobic at all or anything, do not go to a horror convention anymore. Not any of the big ones because you can't move. Like the last 3 or 4 I've been to have literally been like you can't stop walking. You because people will run you over and you
Yeah.
can't move any direction because it's like being at fucking Disneyland or something. It's gotten to that level now.
Mhm.
So just keep that in mind too. Like when you go to these shows, you're going to be cramped with a ton of people. And
Mhm.
those people are in varying stages of like body odor. I want you to understand that
Oh,
too.
yeah.
And
Uncle
they are
Bill,
all smoking weed. The majority of them are smoking weed. So if you're, that's your
the
thing, then you'll find that.
I just thought real quick I'd add this. I don't know if you do this, but this is what I do every time I'm at a convention. Whenever I go in, whether it be a Scare Fest or a Texas Frightmare, which are very similar in terms of size and guests and things like that, I walk in and I lap the whole thing.
Yeah, it's
And I look
exactly. Yeah.
gauge the lines. Okay, there's no point in me waiting in Kane Hodder's line right now. It's backed out through the goddamn street. Okay, that vendor's cool. What are they called? Boom, boom, boom. What is this one called? Okay, cool. Okay, Suzanne Snyder's line's not too long. I know I want to meet her. Boom, and I gauge everything. I get a sense of the room, and I recommend that. Just do a whole just just kind of like do a whole drive by the entire convention one time.
Well, and there's pros and cons to like how you meet people too. So, for example, a lot of people will say meet the people with the longest lines first. That way, because you won't be as tired. You know what I mean? Like you'll be fresh and you can stand in the line and you won't be dead and things like that. But if you do that, you're going to miss probably 2 or 3 hours, of
Yeah.
the show where like other people are going to be doing stuff and things like that. So there's pros and cons to the way you want to like go about that. But I completely agree with like go around and kind of look and gauge like everybody's line. A lot of times, this is another shitty thing about conventions nowadays. I don't know when this started happening as much either, but a lot of times those people won't be at their tables. They'll be off like either doing a Q&A or they'll be off like eating lunch or snorting blow. I don't know what they're doing, but they're not at their tables a lot of the times like anymore. Like they go off and do whatever random
Yeah.
things. So sometimes, that can be to your advantage if there's nobody standing there and the person, you can go kind of sneak into a line with nobody in it. And the person usually comes back within, you know, 15, 30 minutes, something like that. So, kind of try to do that from time to time too.
So people, please be careful out there with your conventions. Educate yourself. Be prepared. And Uncle Bill, thank you for giving me your brief history on conventions and some of your funny experiences. And I don't know, man. Maybe one day horror will stop being so popular and big, and we can get it back to being, I'm becoming a grumpy old man too. But like, I kind of want to take things back to what I remembered with conventions, walking right up to Doug Bradley and being intimidated is by him just showing him my laser disc and not knowing what to say. And
Yeah, that's the worst you had to worry about. Like really back then was like kind of like yourself. Like being nervous and going up to somebody. And now it's like, can I pay the next month's fucking rent if I go to this
Yeah,
show? Like,
it's
screw.
insane. Yeah,
But I don't think it's going back. I think the horse is out of the barn, and I don't. And there seems to be no slowing down on it either. Like you would think, as like it gets up to a certain point of prices, people would be like, you know what, I can't do this. But that's not what's happened. There's more people at shows now than there ever was.
it's
So
yeah. So there it is, guys. Uncle Bill, thank you for coming on. I really appreciate it.
yeah, man.
I
Thank you.
enjoy these kinds of topic videos. I know my audience, they just been loving it. So I've been trying to provide them with really cool discussions. I'd love to have you back. I'll find another topic that would be perfect for you, and we'll get you back on to do another video like this. Just to promote yourself, Deadpit Radio on YouTube. You guys are on Facebook. You have a Facebook kind of fan page, right, where you guys kind of interact with everybody.
Yeah, it's just a Dead Pit Facebook page. If you just enter that in there, you'll find it. And then we're like Into the Dead Pit on Instagram, and we got a Patreon that's connected to mostly the YouTube shows and stuff that we do. But yeah, this is kind of like going on 20 years now. Like if you don't count the time period there where we kind of took a break,
Yeah,
we're going on 20
which
years.
we covered that on this channel. We did
Yeah.
The Uncle Bill interview on that, which was, I thought that turned out really well. A lot of people told me it was really cool to get you to open up about a lot of stuff on that show. So I was really proud of that. So again, thank you for that as well.
Yeah, those are great. I always love doing these shows, so I appreciate you having me on.
And the last thing, do you guys have any Felcher shows planned or any big interviews planned? I feel like you guys have probably got something cooking right now.
Well, this is May of the Dead. We've always done May of the Dead for as long as I can remember. And in May of the Dead is usually zombie related stuff. So we got a bunch of zombie related things coming up. We got a tier list coming up. We're going to try to get an interview. Felcher, we did the spin the wheel, make the deal.
You landed on Felcher. I was kind of hoping it was going to be Planet Dirty.
Yeah, I was, any of those would have been great. But like,
can't complain about Felcher though. It's gonna be
Felcher was odd that it just happened to be him, and so it landed on him, and the category being killer kid movies. So we're currently trying to talk him into doing that show, and God knows if he'll do it or not. I hope he does. He's right in the throes of the second year of trying to get Trick or Treat to come out. So
yeah,
it's not been
people are
getting,
but people get
pretty close.
Really, I know people are getting really tired of waiting for that, Uncle Bill.
I feel bad for him at this point, man. Like
it's not his fault. I'm assuming he's done everything.
Oh, it's totally his fault. But I still feel bad.
Oh, really?
For him. Oh yeah, it's totally his fault. We talked
Can he not get Gene Simmons? I mean, what the hell?
I don't know.
With Ozzy Osbourne, I want Gene Simmons on the box set.
I would love. I asked him that too in one of those shows that we did. I would love to get like somebody like Gene Simmons on there just to do, something like an interview.
I can understand him when he talks.
Yeah.
He
was great in that movie too.
Oh,
is the weird
fantastic.
thing.
He's fantastic as the DJ.
But I don't know. I've heard so many different rumors about what's keeping that up that I can't even speculate at this point. It's either the packaging or the special features aren't ready yet, or there's rights issues with who the fuck knows. But hopefully it'll come out soon. And we still love Felcher. Got a great background with Felcher. Yeah, he's probably one of the most important guys in the history of physical media. To be honest,
I don't doubt it. I don't doubt that at all.
I mean, he was back in the day doing special when nobody was doing that stuff. Like mostly him.
Yeah, he's the man. So thank you guys for watching this. Again, if you're going to a convention, heed our warnings. Listen to Uncle Bill. He's a veteran. He's done this for a long time, and he's just trying to help you guys. So have a great night. Thank you guys for listening, and we'll see y'all next time. Take care. Huge, giant thank you to all of my Patreon supporters. Without you guys, this would not be possible. To get behind-the-scenes photos, videos, music, private live streams, and much more, you can subscribe to my Patreon for as little as $1 a month. Thank you to my patrons.